questions for reflection. In our first reading for today's Holy Mass, we hear of the heroic encounter between the great Hebrew prophet Elijah and the false prophets of Baal. Many people have heard of the dramatic encounter between this great Old Testament prophet and the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. It's recorded in the 18th chapter of the Old Testament book of 1 Kings. The prophet confronts hundreds who oppose him in a test of faith. Each builds an altar and calls upon his God to send fire to consume it. Elijah is the only one whose prayer is answered, as the altar and sacrifice are consumed by fire. After Elijah confronted the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel, he was exhausted. Then he learned of the threat upon his life from Jezebel. We find this mighty man of God so distraught that he prays for death. Retreating to a desert to die under a broom tree, he encounters the Lord, who visits him through a messenger. That's what the word angel means. His surrender to the voice of God, though reluctant at first, shows us a pattern we can imitate in our own lives. It teaches us how to hear the voice of God, not in spite of, but even through those difficult times in our own lives. When we reach the end of ourselves, we find the beginning of authentic faith. We read, and I quote, "Elijah went a day's journey into the desert until he came to a broom tree and sat beneath it. He prayed for death, saying, 'This is enough, O Lord. Take my life, for I'm no better than my father's.' He lay down and fell asleep under the broom tree. But then an angel touched him and ordered him to get up and eat. Elijah looked, and there at his head was a hearth cake and a jug of water. After he ate and drank, he lay down again, but the angel of the Lord came back a second time, touched him, and ordered, 'Get up and eat, else the journey will be too long for you.' He got up, ate, and drank. Then, strengthened by that food, he walked 40 days and 40 nights to the mountain of God, Horeb." That's from 1 Kings 19. Let me be clear, I marvel at the courage of Elijah and the power of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to confound the false prophets of Baal. However, it's the same God who chooses to meet in dialogue with Elijah under that broom tree after that dramatic event. Elijah is meant to inspire us in the exciting times and in the exhausting times in our life of discipleship. In both places, the Lord is there with us. This is the kind of faith David, the psalmist prophet, also had. Today's psalm is a prayer we should make our own. "Protect me, O God, and you is my refuge. To Yahweh I say, you are my Lord, my happiness is in none. People flock to their teeming idols. Never shall I pour libations to them, never take their names on my lips. My birthright, my cup is Yahweh. You alone hold my lot secure. I keep Yahweh before me always, for with him at my right hand nothing can shake me. You will teach me the path of life and unbounded joy in your presence. At your right hand, delight forever." In the gospel appointed for today's Holy Mass, Jesus continues his teaching on the Sermon on the Mount by explaining that he has come to fulfill the law and the prophets, not abolish them. And he reminds us that we are called to do the same. At the end of the 5th chapter of Matthew's Gospel, we read these startling words, and I quote, "So be perfect just as your heavenly Father is perfect," end quote. How can we be perfect? What does it mean? What does holiness mean? Can we all become holy? The answer is yes. The admonition from Jesus is clear and undeniable. It's repeated in other gospel accounts and developed in several New Testament epistles. I suggest our problem with understanding and responding to the passage is twofold. We misunderstand the meaning of the word, and we have limited our comprehension of the goal of the fullness of salvation in Jesus Christ. The one through whom we were first created is recreating us now through his grace as we cooperate and choose to live our lives now in him. In Greek, the word is teleos. Teleos refers to something being completed, brought to its full purpose, potential, and intended end and vocation. For example, in the world of objects, a hammer is teleos or perfect when it's hammering a nail. In the world of subjects, things are teleos or perfect when they're fulfilling their nature. We were created in the image of the God of love who made us for love. And in Jesus Christ, we're now capacitated to use a term of the early father and Bishop Irenaeus of Lyon, made capable by the grace of his redemption of loving as God himself loves.